All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to Aparo's Nonprofit Bites and Insights. These are our webinar series that are exclusively tailored for nonprofit professionals like yourselves. We invite speakers and experts from all different industries to come share their knowledge and insights with all of you free of charge. We have Michelle with us today talking about meetings and how we can make them more effective with data. Now, before I turn it over to her, a few housekeeping details, and I apologize not putting this in presentation mode. My mouse is going crazy, so please bear with me. All our webinar recordings are being recorded, and we do post them on our website as well as our new YouTube channel. A great way to stay connected on all of our videos is to subscribe to our channel. If you do go to YouTube to search for it, please be sure to search for Aparo CLT, and you'll find all of our training materials there. But all of you who are attending live with us today, you are going to receive a follow-up email from me that'll give you that direct link to the recording, so you don't need to worry about it, as well as a slide deck from Michelle and other resources. We also have the Q&A and chat box available for you to use to ask questions and make comments. Closed captioning is also available if you'd like to use that. So really quickly about Aparo, we are a nonprofit based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we help nonprofits with their technology needs. The way that we do that is we connect nonprofits with skilled volunteers and corporations in the community, and together we help that nonprofit amplify their impact in the communities and populations that they serve. Our services are broken up into 3 categories. We have advice, education, and solutions. All nonprofits are going to come through our advice service, which we connect you one-on-one with a tech therapist, and they're going to guide you to make sure that you're getting connected with the right service. So that might include getting one-on-one coaching, getting guidance on resources and solutions, getting connected with a vetted vendor. If you're looking for team trainings for your staff, we do that as well. And then under our solutions, we connect you with a team of volunteers that will help make sure that you're getting the solution that your nonprofit needs. I do want to quickly mention that we do have a grant program that is open for applications. It's called our GAIN program. This is a 1-year nonprofit accelerator program. So we make sure that you're getting some tools, some support, some training to get you to kick off your technology implementations, or if you have ideas of how you want your nonprofits to be, this is a great program to consider. Information session is in a few weeks if you want to learn more. I will drop in the link to the registration for the information session in the chat in a moment. Finally, these are the different ways to connect with us. We have, if you want to get started with our programs and our services, go to our website, submit a request, and we'll get in contact with you as soon as possible. Also subscribe to our email list so that you can stay updated on our programs. Feel free to email me. And then finally, if you like what we do, please consider writing a short Google review. Okay, I will go ahead and stop sharing and turn it over to Michelle. Oh, Michelle, we can't hear you. There you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to meet with you all today. As you submitted in the questions before the webinar, we have heaps of types of meetings. We have everything from one-on-ones with your staff or clients to weekly meetings with your staff, executive team meetings, board strategic planning sessions, committees. You've got a lot of options in order to think about how you want to integrate data into your day-to-day meeting operations. And you have data in a lot of different places. You can get more out of your data in every format. So if your data is an email, if they're in my head, I would think about what are some of the most important data points to store. Think about where you want to put them and how you would enter it. Because having some history of some of the most important data points in your organization is a great place to start. If you're working out of forms in Excel, you have a lot of opportunities to use tools in Excel like conditional formatting, pivot tables to get more value out of the data that you already have. Whenever you're capturing data, think about standardizing it. So for example, if you are capturing addresses, maybe think about having a state dropdown instead of N Carolina, North Carolina, NC, because that way you actually can do more with the data. If you've got a CRM, you have a lot of robust tools. You have the ability to think about reports and dashboards for some of your standard meetings and analysis. So really thinking about the strategy of that and then setting that up can be really quite powerful. Another option, depending on what CRM you have, is to think about sending reports automatically via email. So maybe every Monday morning you have a certain list or a certain set of things sent to your team, or their dashboard refreshes, and you kind of center them around that so that you all are working from the same data. I was reading on LinkedIn this morning about some of the reasons that you have more effective meetings. And one of the key points was 80% of meeting success is in preparation. It's things like figuring out who you want to be in the room, how you want to run the meeting, and in this case, what data you want to have. So I feel pretty strongly that you should never have a bring your own data meeting. When you have a meeting where multiple people bring in their numbers and you spend half the meeting figuring out what you're looking at, it's just not that effective. So one of your to-dos is to agree in advance, what are your key metrics and how you define them? Things that might even seem really straightforward, like how many clients you served or how many new donors you have. Different people can define them differently based on time period, how they define a client, how they define a donor. So unless you have that standardized information, you're going to spend more time discussing what the metrics are than what to do about them. So think about how you define them, who will be bringing that information, and what data source will be pulled from. The overall goal of that is to spend your meeting briefly reviewing the trends and primarily focusing on next steps and what you're going to do to achieve your goals. Related but slightly different is think about how to avoid metrics confusion. If you go into a meeting and people see metrics or analysis that they've never seen before, some people are going to be unsure as to what they're looking at, what the point is, how it's defined. So wherever possible, send in advance an agenda. Send your metrics and analysis that will be discussed, and also send who to ask for clarification. So if you don't know what you're looking at, reach out to Michelle. And the goal of this is to create more effective meetings, but it's also to create more inclusive meetings. I was recently on a session about creating an inclusive board culture, and they brought up something I hadn't really thought about. So different learning styles need processing time. If they see something right in the meeting, they're not necessarily going to have the time to think it through and really contribute to their highest level. Also, power dynamics prevent in-meeting clarification for some participants. If you have a really junior staff member or maybe a new member of your board who doesn't quite feel comfortable asking questions yet, they might just sit there and not understand what's going on and not be able to contribute to their highest level. So if you share the metrics in advance and they can do that privately, it can really help them out. So I think we want to move away from conversation to action. You have meetings where you look at a lot of data, but you don't make decisions, then those just don't feel like a good use of time. One of the things you can do is split your metrics by time frame, daily to yearly. And we're going to go through some examples of that in the next couple of slides. And then clarify what metrics to bring by audience and purpose. So this might be, you're going to want to bring really different metrics to a strategic board planning session versus your weekly one-on-one with your client advisor. So example program metrics breakout, maybe daily or weekly, you're going to look at client appointments versus staffing. You're going to be looking at your number of new clients. Maybe monthly, you're going to look at program participation versus capacity, referrals to other agencies. And then on an annual or strategic basis, you might want to look at client demographics, evaluating any shifts and what that might mean for your programming, and also start to think more about outcomes. Those are both great from your reporting perspective with your supporters, and then also really thinking about how you want to tweak your programs in order to better meet those outcomes. If you're thinking about fundraising metrics, you might have daily ticket sales for your upcoming fundraiser or other event. Monthly, you might look at your fundraising revenue versus goal, number of first-time donors, new recurring donors, a number of different, more tactical metrics. And then on an annual or strategic basis, you're going to look at something like your donor demographics. Are those shifting? Is your average gift size shifting? And do you want to rethink maybe your major gift program because of that? What do your email and direct mail performance look like? And where do you want to continue investing? And how do you want to think about that a little bit differently? And for volunteer management, kind of similar things. On a daily or weekly basis, you're really just working on volunteers versus current shifts and activities. Do we have enough people to achieve our current shifts? Are we having issues? Do I need to bring in this new volunteer? For monthly, maybe you're looking at your number of new volunteers or volunteer groups. Maybe you want to look at like shifts that aren't easily filled and think about if you want to change your recruitment strategy, the timing, anything around that to make you able to be more effective. And annually and strategically, maybe you're looking at renewing volunteers, the number of people that have decided to continue volunteering with you over an extended time period. Maybe you want to look at volunteer feedback and see if there are opportunities for you to shift how you're working with your volunteers in order to create a better and different experience. One of the things that you can bring into meetings and your other communications are goals. So goals can be everything from very realistic to your big, hairy, audacious goal, and they have really different purposes. So your big, hairy, audacious goal, maybe you want to raise 10 times more money than you have in the past, or you want to serve twice as many clients. That's great. There's a great opportunity to use that in communication with your supporters, in communication with your staff to get them really excited. But if you're looking at like budget or operational planning, then you want to bring in more realistic metrics. You want to make sure that your revenue metrics are going to cover your budget. You want to make sure that you have the staff in place in order to actually serve the clients that you have and are likely to see. I used to work in the corporate sales world, and for example, you would have $1 million team goal. You would have 10 people on the team, and each of them would have, say, $120,000 quota. That way, you have the ability to cover for underperformance, new staff that are ramping up, vacations, all kinds of things that can happen, and still give you a chance to really meet that team goal. Something you're really going to want to look at in your meetings are some of your performance drivers. So the more clarity and confidence you can have about if you're going to hit your fundraising target or be able to meet client demand, that'll really help you out. Think about things like seasonality. With your fundraising, you might have a particular month in which you get a lot of donations. Maybe it's back to school season. Maybe it is Giving Tuesday. Maybe it is Black Philanthropy Month. Think about your percentage of revenue by source. If you have a lot of corporate donors, if you have individuals, kind of think about what that looks like, and that can help you understand where some of your drivers are. And then think about drivers of client demand. Maybe you have more demand for your programs in the summer when kids are out of school. Maybe you have a big uptick around the holidays. Maybe you have particular cohorts where people are coming into your program based on how you set it up, or maybe based on external demands. So by knowing your performance drivers, you can more accurately track performance and put a recovery plan in place more quickly. And you can forecast demand for services and think about how you want to either ramp up or change protocols as needed. So I thought we'd pop into a discussion, and we can do that through the chat, or you can raise your hand and come on into the conversation. I've set a few big high level questions, and we can just take this in whatever direction makes sense to y'all. Things like, what's your biggest opportunity using data in your meetings? What's your biggest barrier? And really, to make it really practical, what is one step that you'll take to move towards more data-driven meetings?
Maybe let's start with that first one. What is your biggest opportunity using data in your meetings? So if you'd like to pop in to speak out, just raise your hand and I will give you the opportunity to talk. You can also use the chat to answer the question.
So I'll talk about an opportunity that I've seen in a nonprofit. Oh, Crystal.
Hi. Thanks, Michelle, so far. This is already piquing my interest. I'm not sure if it answers the first question or the third, but hearing all this, the first step for us, the biggest opportunity is we got to get our data in one place so that we can track it and share it in meetings, because we aren't doing it routinely. It's more of like once a quarter, and it's very on time for us in our organization because we're getting ready to do a lot of sprints. And I think this will help us track, like, if we're putting in this extra push to get these things done, being able to show them on a weekly basis, your effort is then in turn filling the gaps in this, or we're now bringing in the revenue dollars, or we've now got this many of our calendar dates filled in. So we're tracking if we're getting closer to meeting capacity. So I think it answered 1 and 3 for you.
And that's a really great point. Like, the more you're able to, because I also work on the CRM side and help people implement their CRMs. And the more you're able to show people the outcome of putting the data into the CRM is that we are now able to make decisions differently. We're able to bring in revenue in different ways. We realize that our client demand is actually in different places than we thought it was. That can get them really bought in and help with your technology adoption. In terms of one of the biggest opportunities that I've seen, oh, Maggie.
Hi, I actually moving to the next one. One of the biggest barriers, more of collecting data so that I could include it in a meeting is around demographics and the lack of response to those questions, and just sort of getting your feedback on, best practices in, how to get people to feel comfortable in giving that data, because I think it really is a comfort issue for many people.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Some of it is about how you think about demographic data. So, for example, I'm in a big membership organization, and instead of asking people their birthday, we've asked them their generation, because we want to get a feeling for how many women we have that are boomers versus millennials. But people are maybe more comfortable sharing their birthday versus their generation versus their birthday. Also, it's about building that relationship where you are able to ask for the information, but also really be able to share how it'll be used. So we will not be, bringing out your specific individual details, whether you're in a position where maybe you have HIPAA privilege, or you're really just thinking about, people's maybe less of a private information, but really being like clear on how the information's used. And then also, I think just the more you attach people to your organization, the more likely they are to be willing to answer your survey questions. But even then, like in this organization I was talking about, we get about 1/3 of the people that fill out our annual member survey, and that's great. And we use their data in order to drive our decision making. But you're never going to get full participation, but the closer you can get. And sometimes you're going to have to extrapolate a little bit. Like, we know from the 1/3 of people that report that this is true. We believe that we have gaps where people that are of these demographics are not reporting as highly as people of these other demographics.
Yeah, survey, getting people to
Great.
complete surveys is not always easy.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. We had someone in the chat share. For me, it would be reporting and bringing reports on a regular basis to our meetings. I think that might be a barrier.
I think that's also an and that's like a one step you can do. Well, it could be any of the three actually. So that's an
Yeah, it could.
opportunity, a barrier and one step. But I think in terms of when you're looking at reporting and bringing reports into the meetings, that's a great step. And maybe thinking about a limited number of metrics to start. And in some ways, the more clear you are on what you're going to look at and have that standardization over time, then you can create a real understanding within the team where you are looking at the same metrics every week or month, and you don't have to spend as much time rethinking things. As I said, I used to work in the corporate world, and we like to come up with new KPIs, and people would get very confused. So the more you could just spend the time looking at the same KPIs, agree on, for example, the funnel metrics you're going to look at, where you're going from someone that came to your website to a client, kind of really thinking about the structure of that data and keeping it consistent over time can be really helpful.
I know, especially leadership, there's a lot of different types of meetings, right? So if you could recommend, Michelle, one meeting to focus on to really bring all of this strategy into it, which would you recommend?
I might start with a more strategic meeting and understand kind of what are some of the bigger questions of your organization. Then you're able to really maybe influence some of the larger decisions with the data. The other option is to start very small and start with a weekly one-on-one and start by incorporating one metric every week, like number of clients served or number of new donors, just something where you can really get that practice of using data incorporated within your team.
Great advice. Is there anyone else that would like to share? Oh, Maggie, see your hand is raised again.
Yeah, hi, thanks again. In terms of sort of at what time do you introduce sort of the data into a meeting? Like, let's just say it's a weekly staff meeting that there might be multiple agenda items to discuss. Is it best to have that data agenda item at the top of the agenda or somewhere else?
I've often seen it be the first item on the agenda because then it can drive the rest of the conversation. It also kind of depends on how the meeting is structured. Maybe you want to start your meeting with like call outs and kudos for people, and then maybe move into like particular items. And then you share the data that's associated with the item or the discussion or the update within that piece. I think that if you've shared it in advance and people kind of have it in the back of their minds, that can really also help because then you're just reiterating it to them. But that's a really great question. It really depends on the structure of the meeting and how you want to think about it. In terms of one of the biggest barriers that I've seen to data-driven meetings, it is the data capture that we've talked about a bit, but it's also data quality and consistency. And part of that is the ability, like Maggie was talking about, to get that data, but also part of it really is the consistency of it. Like I was saying, where you capture states and they can be quite different. Maybe you have inconsistent ways that you're categorizing client data. Maybe you have different forms that you're getting in your client data, and on some forms you ask certain questions and on other forms you don't. So the consistency of collecting the data and getting it into your system is really important in order to be able to use it more later. And that's a process. It's a process for every organization, from little to big, corporate, private, nonprofit, government, all of the above. So that is always a process.
Okay, so based on that, how often do you suggest you review any kind of surveys? And is it
Hmm.
just annually, or when an issue comes up, or both? Or
I would think for surveys, it depends on what you're looking to do with the data. I think for a lot of larger conversations, it is annual because you can't change your strategy overly often. But if you're in a position where maybe you have mobile units and you want to figure out the best place to put your mobile units in order to hit your clients, or you want to think about where to have events in order to have your donors come, or you want to get their feedback in order to figure out what to do next, and that's the best time to look at that data. So it's probably annual for a lot of surveys, but then it's probably quarterly or monthly for some other things, depending on when you're able to use that data to make changes.
Any other thoughts or questions?
Well, I know this is actually a lot to think about because, you know, we have meetings every day. We don't always think about them so much, particularly if we've gotten into a cadence of them. But I found that by really honing in on the prep work and the metrics you're going to bring, the outcomes you want to see, it can really help you feel like your meetings are more effective. So I hope you all have gotten some good ideas from this, and please feel free to reach out if there's anything that I can help you with.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And like you said before, just bring one metric in at a time.
Mhm.
And that will really start kicking off some great conversations. Really great ideas. Michelle, was there anything more after this slide?
No, we're just available to answer a few more questions if people have them, and otherwise we'll let them get on with their days.
There's no other questions. I actually, we meant to do that. How do you feel about data
yeah.
question at the beginning? Maybe there'll be a nice way to end it.
Yes, that's a good thought. So if you want to just pop in the chat, how are you feeling about using data in meetings? And it can be everything from enraged to serene, hopefully not enraged.
Hopefully not.
Because I feel like there's so much opportunity, but it is also a little bit overwhelming.
Great, we love it. Energized. Ooh, these
Energized.
are positive. Data is great.
Data is great. Yes.
Decisions
Kelly,
must
rooting
be
your
made.
decisions in data. I've come to love data. I used to be overwhelmed and now I'm motivated by it. Oh, Christy's feeling thoughtful. I like that.
I'm glad to see there's no disgusted or glum. I like the word glum, but
Well, no one wants to be glum on a summer Thursday.
right. Well, this is great. A lot of optimism and positivity. Data is super important. We know that. Michelle, I think you gave some great ideas for anybody who leads meetings or just participates in meetings. I think we can go ahead and wrap up if there's no other questions. Is it okay if I share with the group your contact information, or would you prefer they come through us?
No, absolutely. It's actually on the deck and we'll go ahead and share that and go from there.
Sounds good. So everyone, do expect a follow-up email from me. I'll include this recording as well as the slide deck, and then of course Michelle's information as well. If you need to reach out to either one of us, please don't hesitate to do so. We're here to help.
Perfect.
Thank you, Michelle, for this amazing presentation and these awesome ideas. And hopefully you'll come back again for another data type session because there's a lot into it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, y'all.